Hello and welcome to episode number 14 of the Crisis Intelligence Podcast. Today is Sunday, September 7th, 2014. I'm Melissa Agnes, and this podcast is brought to you by Agnes Day. Let's talk crisis intelligence. Hey Chris, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
My name's Chris Boddy. I'm a staff sergeant with the Toronto Police Service. I'm currently running a newly formed customer service unit, and I'm also an executive officer for one of the deputy chiefs of the Toronto Police.
Excellent. So tell us about this new customer service program you're doing.
Right. Well, over the last couple of years, we've been, as all services, police services have been throughout North America, trying to find opportunities for efficiencies and effectiveness in order to, have value for money. So, in order to do so, we had a consultant come in a couple of years ago now. We underwent what we call the Chief's Organizational Review, and they helped us find some efficiencies and some economies throughout our organization. They reorganized our organizational chart a little bit, and what they suggested is that a lot of large organizations have what's called a strategy management unit, and as part of that, there's a customer service component to it. So we agreed with that recommendation. So we now have a strategy management unit reporting directly to the chief, and part of that unit involves our customer service strategy. So what we've done over the last couple of months now, we've hired an external consultant, customer service experts who have a small boutique firm here in the city of Toronto, and they're helping us develop a customer service strategy for the Toronto Police Service. So we've undergone an internal survey, which over 1,000 of our members responded to. A web-based survey, and we've done 7 or 8 internal focus groups with a cross-section of members throughout the service, and we've just begun our external focus groups starting this week. So they'll be working with us till late fall, and then we expect to have some recommendations before the winter.
That's really cool. So you're looking at 2 parts of the program, which is one is internal customer service and the other is external customer service.
Right, yeah. So we have a real heavy focus on internal customer service, and we're going to fix that first. With the reason being, there's lots of documents written out there that suggest that if you can improve customer service internally, that'll have a positive effect on customer service externally. So that's just kind of where we're heading.
And so I think that it's really interesting, especially because I think that when you think of a police department, you don't necessarily think of customer service.
That's right. And that's a lot of the things that we've been talking about, and that's what a lot of our members have been hung up on, actually, that word customer. So we're working through that. A lot of what we're realizing, a lot of what the members realize, is that our customer is something that people spend money for something, but it could be said that the taxpayers pay for customer service or pay for public safety.
And but I think so maybe it's the term customer, but customer service in terms of engaging and responding and building a community, which is the focus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's face it, we need the community members. Every police service needs the community to engage with the police because, let's face it, police officers, very rarely do we hear the gunshots. Very rarely do we see the person that's run out of a house that's just been broken into. We need the public to call us. So we believe if we improve relations with them, that will reciprocate them being more cooperative with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also letting them, on the other side of that, is getting them to build a relationship with with their city's police officers and build trust and turn to you as well. Know that yes, they can be there for you when you need information to solve question marks, but at the same time turn to you when they think that they could need your support. And
absolutely. And we would hate to live in a society where community members stop calling the police, to report crime that they've been victimized from as well. So we think we're going in the right step. We're lucky in Toronto. We enjoy an amazing relationship with our community as it is, but we can always improve.
Absolutely. I think it's a great concept. I think it's an out-of-the-box way to focus on it. Now, I do a lot of training on issues management, and a big part of that is customer service, because your front line is primarily today who's going to detect an issue first.
Yeah.
So do you have a focus on issues management as part of this program?
Not specifically. Our consultants may come back with something along those lines, but that's not a huge focus, at least in the preliminary stages.
Okay. And so when you're looking at the customer service internally and externally, this program, what tools are you looking at using?
Well, that's I don't want to be too presumptuous, so that's what we're waiting for.
Okay, so this is all just the beginning.
Our recommendations. Yeah, okay. Exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly.
I'm guessing the social media is going to be part of that.
Yeah, it's going to be part of that. We've heard from our people that communication could be better throughout the organization. So we'll be looking at things like retooling our website, both internally and externally. Those type of things initially.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's look a little bit more over on the side of crisis communications and today's tools and technology.
Yeah.
Is the Toronto Police Department leveraging technology, social media for your crisis communications, either internal or externally?
Right. Well, I can tell you, I'll give you a little bit of a background as far as our social media presence. The Toronto Police Service, we have just under 300 members that we've trained on social media, primarily Facebook and Twitter. Of those 300, there's probably around 100 that are quite active. The others, not so much. We have 17 frontline divisions throughout the city. All those divisions have social media people within them. We also have a new unit now, which we call the Toronto Police Operations Center, and that's going to be kind of unique because it's going to be a center that's manned 24 hours a day, and they'll have a Twitter account, and it'll be an account that there won't be a whole lot of conversation back and forth on. They'll just be pushing out information. So if we had some kind of an emergency, a shooting, a big fire, or what have you, people will be able to turn to that internet, to that Twitter handle to see, find out exactly what's happening.
Well, that's interesting. And how are you planning to get that out there?
Well, we're doing a bit of a soft launch right now. I think in September, once the kids go back to school, we'll probably do a launch right at our headquarters. We'll invite the media in to have a look at it as well.
I like that. Well, I like that, and I also like the fact that you just said that you trained 300, people within your unit to understand and use social media. 100 using it. Now, these 100 people, are they police officers? Are they dedicated to, does part of their duty or job description include things like this operations center? Who are these 100 people who are actually actively engaging and using?
Well, these are people throughout the service. So they're primarily police officers, but we have a lot of civilians that use this equipment as well. As far as a primary job function, we probably have one or two people assigned to our corporate communications that, job is to manage the Toronto Police corporate accounts. But like everywhere else, we're tight on resources. So as far as divisions go, we don't have members completely dedicated to social media. That's just part of their duties. It's something that they sort of volunteer to do. We can't give them any extra money for it, but it's a way for a lot of our employees, show that they're engaged and do some of that work with communities.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that in order to do social media right, you have to have a natural passion for it. So the fact that you're able to find, police officers and members within your community that they're not looking at it as a way of earning more money, they're looking at it as a way of extending a passion or combining two passions. Maybe one is technology, social media communications, and the other is their job.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the nice thing about this. And I mean, as well, Melissa, we can't force employers can't force people to do social media because, that's just not going to work. People need to see the value in it on their own. And so we're lucky in the Toronto Police Service that we have a lot of people that have stepped up and are doing a great job for both the service and the citizens of Toronto as well. So we're proud of that.
And what kind of communications have so far been the most, maybe the most frequent or the most valuable, the most impactful between police officers and your community?
Yeah, well, you know what? We have a variety of things that we message out every day, and I can tell you when we started this initiative about 3 years ago, it was run out of our corporate communications office, and there was there was a lot of nervousness about officers going out on their own, representing the service, and sending Facebook messages out and tweeting. Without it getting improved through the corporate lens initially. So a lot of the things that we were doing initially were just strictly police business. A lot of missing person type information. If we had obviously if there was a criminal activity, we would reach out to see if there were any witnesses in a specific area or what have you. But I myself over the last 3 years have done a lot of training on my own, and you speak to a lot of these customer service or social media experts, if you will, and a lot of them will say that, even for people that are representing a brand, they'll talk about their brand about 20% on social media, and then the rest of the 80% is just them showing a little bit of their personality. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we've tried to encourage our members to do, and certainly that's what I've done over the last couple of years. I do, a lot less things about actual police work than I do about, regular general things in life. But part of the reason I want to do that is because I want people to know that cops are people too. We have favorite sport teams. We're parents. We're neighbors. We're just like everybody else. So a lot of people get a little hung up that police officers they have a badge and wear a uniform and they're different than the general public. But the fact is that we're not. And I can tell you the social media has been a great way to break down some of those barriers.
I love that. And it's so important, especially when with the end goal of the strategy of creating a community of trust and communication where people feel safe to come, and whether it's you're communicating to them or them communicating to your team. So in order to fully accomplish that, you have to show a piece of who you are. And I know I think that's what brought us together was Twitter.
Yeah, no, for sure. And when we first connected, I'm sure you didn't connect because it was something I was talking about, crime in Toronto. It was probably just a generalized tweet about some kind of a fun thing going on. So
absolutely. And the most recent one that comes to mind is a certain leg shaving. What campaign? Fundraiser.
That's right. So we organize, or I kind of represent for the service. Every year we do a Cops for Cancer head shave event at one of our local malls. This is the 18th year we participated in it, and all the proceeds go to the Canadian Cancer Society. And that's such an important function for us, an important event for us, because let's face it, so many people in our lives have been touched by cancer, either with a personal diagnosis, or we've had a family or a friend or a coworker affected by that. So that's something that we really come out and support every year. So the last couple of years, we've had one of our restaurant owners on Yonge Street has gotten involved, and this year they challenged us to a leg shave. So we went there one evening, late spring, and we had the Miss Canada pageant contestants there as well. So we did a little leg shave and raised about another $15,000 for the Cancer Society. So it was a good fun event. And again, that's another thing that that shows that cops are 20 years ago. You'd never see cops doing that, and now it's kind of different times. So
absolutely,
yeah.
And how was the? I mean, I know that I kind of engaged with you. I saw that. I know I had a chuckle, and I tweeted something like, "I want to see pictures."
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, and that's the kind of fun things that we do now. So even in the late fall, the Cancer Society asked if we wanted to participate in a manicure, where some of the male officers would actually get a pink manicure and raise money for the society. So we did that as well. And again, very well received by the media and very well received by the community as well. So we're happy to do those kind of things.
Those are great stories.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one thing that, so the people that you've trained, I love that you say that you've trained people for social media, because so many organizations don't. They say, okay, we need to personalize and humanize the brand or the organization
right.
and people behind the brand. And we want everybody to be out on social. We want to kind of give them, just go and do what you do and introduce yourself and be you. But there's, I do risk management. The risk of that can be very, very severe. So I like that you thought about that and that you provided them with the training.
That's right. Well, we wanted to give them the tools to succeed, and it's hard to understand a lot of the social media platforms, at least for somebody that's not tech savvy as somebody like me. So we wanted to just give them the overall basics. So we set them. It was a 2-day training. The first day was sort of in the classroom, talking about the risks to the organization and even personal risks too, and understanding that when you put information out there, if you choose to include your address or things about your family, then that's going to put yourself, it could potentially put you and your family at risk. So we just need people to remind our members that this is something that you put something out on social media, even if you don't have many followers, it's out there for the world to see. So a lot of light bulbs go off then, and frankly, we've had a few after the first day say, you know what, I don't think this social media thing is for me, and that's fine too, because we don't want somebody doing this because we're forcing them into doing it and then them making a mistake because they weren't comfortable with it. So that's kind of the thinking there. And then the second day, we basically just walk them through opening up a Twitter account and a Facebook account and talk about some of the search engines and how it can be used sort of on the front end. And now we're actually training people how to use it as an investigative tool as well.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And how are you seeing it come? I'm sure it's a process.
It's a process, and it's early days. So we haven't seen a lot of this type of work actually go through the courts yet. So we don't have a lot of solid case law on how any of this stuff is going to turn out. But it's something that we know we can't turn a blind eye to. So we're actively pursuing that angle as well. So
I love it, and I love So I see a lot of different police departments in particular, which I think is so interesting, that are really leveraging the benefits of these communication channels today. And they're very dispersed. So they're not, it's not everybody out there that's doing it, but there are a few, like the Toronto PD, that are doing it really, really great, really well, really strategically, very slowly. They're entering into the process, and you're not just rushing into something
Yeah.
with blindfolds on, and you're also not holding back out of fear, which is brilliant. So do you find that there's other organizations out there that either you communicate with or that you look to as role models, or that are maybe parallel to you and you guys can learn from each other? Do you find that there's a community for your own community of police officers out there?
Yeah, well, actually, we do take best practices from a lot of organizations, not just in North America, but throughout the world. And we're also involved with an organization called SmileCon, and they actually do a lot of training to police organizations. And we actually brought them on as consultants to help us with our initial strategy. And they have two or three conferences every year where they're held throughout the world. I think the last one was in North Carolina, and I think the one in the fall is actually somewhere in the UK. So that's a great networking tool as well. But yeah, I mean, we look to all kinds of organizations. I mean, there's some organizations that we've learned that they set their people out, they don't give them any training, and then they say, go ahead, do your best. And there's others that don't actually allow their members to have individual social media accounts. They just have they're just comfortable for the time being anyway, having the corporate account out there. So it's a little bit different. There's different appetites as far as how much risk certain organizations want to take in this initiative. But I can tell you, I think it's the only way to go, and I would encourage any organization. You know what, you hire your people because you hire your employees for a reason. Obviously, you trust them. Encourage them to get into this field, because if they're not, I think they're going to be left behind.
Absolutely, it's great. And what are what are your biggest challenges that you're facing right now in terms of all of this?
Well, to properly resource it is one, and you'll hear that from every service, every police organization these days. I mean, it would be great to be able to staff our corporate account 24/7, but we just don't have the capacity right now. Something may come out of some of the work that we're doing, that there may be a component to increase our social media presence, or at least the resources dedicated to it. And even after our customer service work is out, I mean, we've created a customer service account. It's at TPS_cares, and that might be something that we may want to look at resourcing on a 24/7 basis, because if somebody has a complaint or a compliment or a question, they could go to that account, and if one person has that question, probably others do. So if we could answer that in the public realm, that may actually show some economies and some efficiency. So we're considering that as well.
Excellent. And just out of curiosity, the SmileCon organization that you referred to, I haven't heard of them before. Are they particularly focused for police departments?
Yeah, law enforcement.
Law enforcement, yeah.
Yeah, they're out of the. You can Google it. I should know the.
I'll Google SmileCon for sure. I'm going to go check them out.
Yeah. Lori Stevens is who ran that, and she's the one that actually we brought her in to help us with our work.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting niche, that's for sure.
It is. It's unique, absolutely.
Yeah. So, thinking of mobile technology, not just social media, does Toronto, the city of Toronto, or the Toronto Police Department, do you guys have apps right now that community members are using that you kind of think about leveraging in terms of emergency communications?
Not as yet, but I know there's an app in the near future that we're going to be announcing. But that's still in the works. But I'm thinking before the end of the year we'll have something.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
I always think of Calgary, the Calgary floods last year. And
That's
they
right.
they didn't have an app targeted for crisis communication, which is actually probably smarter because you want an app that people find relevant all the time
That's
and that
right.
they use so that doesn't get deleted and it's top of mind if they need to use it.
That's right.
And so the city itself had a couple apps that they just ended up being able to throw push notifications through it and communicate. They communicated really effectively during the floods of last year, and as a result, there were no deaths within the
Yeah,
city
that's right. And
limits.
I know the Calgary social media accounts did a great job as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They did. That was. They really worked efficiently together, and
Yeah,
they. I mean, even they. I remember at one point they got locked into Twitter jail because they were tweeting too much, so they got
that's right.
kicked
So one of
off
the other
of.
officers had to step up. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that
but
too.
because they were knew in advance to use hashtags, no communications got lost.
Yeah, that's right.
So
And that's one of the things we stress now, especially well, obviously on Twitter. When we have an event happen, we try to create a hashtag immediately,
so important.
even for missing people. If there's one that we're seriously concerned with, well, typically, if you were missing in Toronto, Melissa, the hashtag would be, find Melissa. So we try to get that out there right at the beginning, and it's pretty effective. And actually, just yesterday, we found an elderly person who had only been gone for 10 minutes, but somebody saw the tweet from our duty operations center and recognized the person walking down the street, and within 10 minutes we found the person thanks to social media. So
Amazing.
yeah, so it's working.
There's a story like that, a little bit more intense, that happened here in Montreal just like maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. I don't know if you heard of it, where somebody dressed as a nurse walked into the maternity ward in a hospital, and they actually took a baby, an infant child, like a day old, out of the mother's hands, dressed as the nurse, walked out of the hospital into their car and drove off.
Holy cow! No, I remember
And
that.
yeah, and right away, once they realized that the baby, because I mean, this is like a normal thing, right? The nurse
Yep.
comes in, takes the baby, going to go do some tests, brings the baby back. So when they realized that what had happened, they had her on video footage, leaving the building and going into the car, and they worked with the police department, the Montreal Police Department, and it might have been the SQ. I have to double check. It might have been just outside the limits of Montreal. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
But anyways, they worked with the police department and they put it out on social media. They leveraged hashtags. They did the right protocols for communicating with the public. And a group of young adults decided to, I think there were 3 of them, they decided that they were going to go and look for this car. And within 2 hours, the baby was found.
Yeah, that's amazing, right?
It's the power of leveraging these very, very important communication platforms for emergency management.
Yeah,
It's
at virtually no cost.
at virtually no cost, and the power of community.
Yeah, that's right. So in Toronto, especially during a Monday to Friday normal workday, including if you're going to include people that are stuck on our roads and traffic jams, there's over 4 million people here on any given day, and we have a total complement of about 5,500 police officers. So obviously, any police organization can't do it on their own.
And it's a big responsibility. Unfortunately, like you said earlier, there's we tend to look at police officers and we see the uniform rather than the person behind it. It's a way to really bring the community together, and it's so valuable when it's needed.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. And I'll share another little story with you about the human side of policing. So I don't know if you followed this, but last September I did that back to school tweet that got picked up by Katie Couric, and it was a big news story.
I missed it.
Okay, so it was a tweet about if you're at school and you see a young kid sitting by himself in the cafeteria, go up and sit beside him and say hello or something like that.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, it went kind of big. So I was doing an interview. I was actually in the States that following weekend, but I was doing a Skype interview, much like this actually, with one of the news stations here in Toronto. So the lady that was interviewing me asked the question that, seemed like an unusual tweet from a police officer. That sounds like something that a human being or a parent would have tweeted.
Go
So I
figure.
said, yeah. So I said, you know what? I am a human being and a parent, so maybe that's why it worked. But even her, and she was familiar with police as well. But a lot of people just have that whole.
There's a stigma.
It is. So we're trying to break that, and there's no better way to do it than showing some personality on social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent. And in terms of that, I mean, you do a great job. I follow you on Twitter, and the rest of your team, the ones, say, the 100 people out there using social media and that, how is that going for them?
Oh, it's going well. Yeah, we actually had a bit of a meeting yesterday with some of the higher users. We call them super users, and it's a learning progress. Part of our issue as well is that we're not able to provide everybody with their own devices, so it's a little bit difficult doing social media at a computer in your office. So that's one of the challenges that we're working through as well, and it's a little bit challenging for some of our members, but overall it's been a good experience. And it's a great way to not only share information with the community, but you can actually share that information internally as well. So I know a lot about the members of the Toronto Police Service and some of the initiatives that's going on throughout the city, way more now than I would have before had I not been part of the social media piece. So there's benefits all the way around.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, you said 5,500 before, correct?
Yeah, that's just 5,500 cops and about 2,200 civilians. So that's a lot of people to keep track of. But social media makes that group a lot smaller.
Absolutely. So the civilians, they're not law enforcement at all. They're just
no. So they're a lot of our support staff to allow us to do what we do on the road, right? So we have a lot of administrative clerks at all of our divisions, and of course, at our headquarters, we've got our finance people. They're civilians. We have our a whole host of as any organization would. Most of our HR people, they're all civilians as well. So that they all make up that 2,200.
Okay, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so, aside from monetary challenges, or budgetary, I should say, challenges,
Mm-hmm.
What are some other challenges in terms of? For example, I hear a lot of there's been organizations that are where they are now in terms of, especially government organizations, law enforcement in particular. They get a lot of pushback at the beginning.
Absolutely. Even a lot of pretty much every organization, there's going to be some pushback at the beginning. And before my role now, I used to work for one of our HR directors. So I spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, but I've been to the odd HR conference, if you will, and a lot of that had to do with organizations being comfortable with social media. So and I presented at one of them, and I said the same thing as I said to you earlier, is that you hire these people for a reason. So you got to trust them. As much damage can be done speaking to a group in a community room as can be done on social media. But at least if something inappropriate happens on social media, you can get out in front of it and at least stop it. If something's said in front of a group of people, person to person, it's not as easy to fix. So.
I say that all the time myself, and it runs true with every organization. It starts with education and then training, and then at some point you just have to trust that the people that represent your organization are responsible adults with the organization's best interests in their heart.
Yeah, that's right. If you're going to need 3 levels of authorization for every tweet you send out, it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. Not today.
Yeah, and even I always say this too. Large corporations, they often have a fairly large following, but it's not as personalized as their employees having their own personal accounts. Mm-hmm. I can even say, even our Toronto Police account, that'll it'll tweet something out saying, we need help for something to find a person or to find a witness of a certain crime. But even with my account, I'll retweet that and put a little comment in front of it. And quite often mine will get retweeted as much or more than the actual police account that has probably 5 times the followers, just because it's just that little personal touch.
And not just that, but it's the person, your icon, your profile picture on Twitter, that they see. It's not a logo. It's a human being.
Right. Yeah. And there's a huge, there's really something to that. And I've experimented a few times with it, and it's, there is something to have a human being on your profile pic as opposed to a logo. So.
And I think that, I say that often, that especially I think it's one of my 10 new rules of crisis communications, is that people when they want to communicate with the humans behind the brand. They don't want to communicate with the logo. Yeah. And one great thing, so there's always a risk when you let your when you let your members or your employees go and tweet through their own handles on behalf of the organization. There's always a risk. There's an external risk. There's also an internal risk. There's bases that need to be covered in terms of agreements, and just to not let legal pursuits take place if something were to go sour with the organization, between the organization and the employee. So there's a number of different risks that should be outlined and prepared for in advance. But that's what you just said is the benefit of, once you've gone through those, you've assessed those risks and you've planned for them, you're going to see a difference between the way that that the people communicate and engage with the brand and the way that they communicate and engage with the representatives of the brand, like they do with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's bang on right there.
I love speaking with police departments, because I just think that you guys have such an important job, and it's amazing when you're getting to watch you guys get creative and to humanize the department, humanize police officers, build communities within the actual community, and attain quicker results. So, for example, that missing older person was found in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So it's really cool to watch that. And was it with you that, I think it was, that I tweeted something out, there was an image or an article about a police officer with their Twitter handle on their uniform.
Yeah, that's right.
That was with you, eh?
Yeah.
And then we kind of emailed that back and forth.
Yeah.
I can't remember what police department that was. I'm going to have to go back and check. But I thought that was such just an innovative way to, leverage all of this new stuff, or I shouldn't say innovative, I should say creative way to do that. So it's really great to watch.
Yeah, well, I can just while you're on those lines, Sault Ste. Marie, actually, they have Twitter handles on their police vehicles. So they have a couple of school officers that are assigned the same vehicle every day. So they actually have their personalized Twitter handle right on their marked scout car.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
And how's that? I love that. It's publicizing. Mm-hmm. The fact, the attempts, the strategy and the attempts, what you're working towards. Yeah.
So I don't know why any organization wouldn't want their people having their own social media accounts, because, like I said, we hire their people. We're proud of our people. We want to show the world what our people can do, and we want the world to connect with them. So that's a great way that they're doing it out there.
It's definitely, like I said, it has its risks. For example, there was an organization in the States, so Phone Dog is a telecommunications company, and they had an employee whose name is Noah Kravitz, who was hired, or who was given the task of tweeting on behalf of the company. So his handle was, I believe, Noah_phone dog or phone dog _Noah, one of the two. Mm-hmm. So it was an incorporation of the two names, personalization and the brand. And when he left the company, so over his term with the company, he managed to achieve like 17,000 followers.
Yeah.
And his role was not just to tweet about the company, but also his own, like to add that personal touch. So
Yep.
he then left the company and still continued to work for them as a consultant from time to time because he had still that following. He changed his handle to Noah Kravitz rather than Phone Dog Noah. And he was engaged by the company to continue to push out some communications periodically. And when that relationship went sour, the company ended up suing him for, I think they valued it at $2.50 per Twitter follower, because they felt that those followers belonged to them.
Yeah.
So that's what I talk about more about the internal risks. You have to think about these things beforehand, and it's kind of like having a prenup, if you or a partner's contract when you're business partners, to assess the risk that could happen if things went sour, identify it, plan for it, and then had they had an agreement between the two parties, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So there's risk, but there's preventable risk.
Yeah, well, I think the risks, I think the rewards actually weigh the risks as far as this goes. And I think it's a bigger risk not to get involved in social media in the first place, frankly.
I agree.
But that's an interesting case. I'd be curious to hear how that ended up.
It closed. They settled out of court. So the results or whatever the settlement was is sealed.
Oh,
so there's no precedent set as of yet that I'm aware of in North America especially. But yeah, no, we don't know who won or what the agreement was that they reached. But it's still negative publicity. It's still, it's a situation that could have been avoided.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, that's an interesting point. I might bring that up.
It's important to look at. Well, like I said, my mind goes to risk.
Ours does too, believe me. Probably more so than any other organization.
Probably. You're probably very right with that. You have to. And I love the fact that you mentioned in your trainings and it's very true. If a police officer, if you're looking for some, bad guy, bad person, and they realize that there's a vulnerability because police officers who may be out looking for that person at that time, and they can find their family home because they're so, I love that you mentioned the risk in that training. And it's important to do that, to give your police officers also, the knowledge, the education that they need, and also the choice.
That's right. And we wanted to lay out the risks to them, right off the bat, as much as we do the risk to the organization. Something as little as turning your location off on your cell phone. A lot of people don't know that even exists.
That was going to be my next point, and things like that.
So we encourage our officers to take all the location enablers off of
absolutely. Just make it a little bit difficult. And the fact is that whether they were actively tweeting or posting on behalf, as stating that they are a police officer or not, they're probably still out there and very findable. So the risk isn't as great. It's not magnified intensely because the risk is just there, period, today.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is public.
We just wanted to, just as a little reminder.
It's important. It's important to realize it because when you think about it, then you start making wiser decisions because your mind thinks about different things that it might not have thought of.
Exactly.
It's very important. And it runs true not just for police officers. It runs true for, representatives of organizations, the front line, the customer service.
Yeah.
Excellent. Chris, I love chatting with you. I could talk about this stuff all day with you.
Me too. Well, let's do it again.
Absolutely. Tell everybody where they can find and follow your awesome tweets and postings.
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter. I'm at TPS Chris Boddy, Boddy. You can same handle on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook as well. So I'm happy to be reached out to anytime.
Excellent. So all of your links as well as the Toronto Police Department's links will be below this podcast as usual, no matter where people are viewing it from.
Sounds great.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And definitely let me know how that customer service program goes. That's something that I'm interested in hearing more about.
Yes. Well, maybe in the fall we'll chat about that again.
Sounds good to me. All
awesome.
Right.
Thanks, Melissa.
Chris. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this week's episode of the Crisis Intelligence Podcast. We appreciate all of your support, so if you could share this podcast with your followers, your friends, your family, your clients, your colleagues, and whoever else you think may be interested in listening, we would really appreciate you doing so. Also, if you could head on over to iTunes and or Stitcher and write us a review and leave us your comments and feedback, we would really appreciate it. If you have any questions for Sergeant Chris Boddy, please send them to me at crisis@agnesday.com, and I will get them to Chris, and I will probably publish the answers to your questions as a blog post over on the Crisis Intelligence blog at agnesday.com. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, and I look forward to talking even more crisis intelligence with you next Sunday.